On today's Locked On Giants podcast, we're giving kudos to Daniel Jones for his fine play over the last several weeks. We're going to dive into the details coming up next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Trainer, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find my written work. And as always, welcome on into my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And if you are watching us on YouTube, please consider subscribing to the channel. Click the bell so that you are notified every time I post a video, whether it be a short or a full-length video. And like the video, that would help. And if you listen to us on our audio platforms, a 5-star review would be greatly appreciated if you are so inclined to give us one. On today's Locked On Giants podcast, no, you didn't mishear the intro. I am going to give kudos to Daniel Jones. This whole show is going to be about Daniel Jones. And folks, it's a positive show. So spoiler alert, it is a positive show because look, no matter what I might feel, no matter what I might think, you can't argue with the facts. And I went through and I rounded up a bunch of research, a bunch of stats, a bunch of, observations from film, and I'm going to lay it out. And the bottom line is that Daniel Jones, the quarterback of the New York Giants, who most people, I should say, not everybody, but most people want to see run out of town, who most people, namely me, had doubts about. I'm going to lay it out. All right. So we're going to start off by talking about the baby steps that he has taken towards playing better football. We're going to talk about then in segment 2, how they have accomplished it, how Brian Daboll has gotten the best out of Daniel Jones. And then in segment 3, his game hasn't been perfect. Some of it's not his fault, but there's a few little things that maybe you want to see him clean up. And he is probably working to clean up over the remainder of the season. So bottom line, folks, I'm giving Daniel Jones the credit he deserves. All right, so let's get into it. I'm going to start off with baby steps. Now, I want to throw out week number 1 of the season when really nobody looked good. And I chalk that up to the fact that Daniel Jones, the offense, the defense, if you go back and you look at when they last played in a live game, it was basically like a month prior to the start of the season. So I'm chalking all that up to rust and just not being active in live games. From weeks 2 to 5, however, let's talk about that. Weeks 2 to 5, Daniel Jones has 3 games with 2 touchdowns. Both of those games, by the way, with no interceptions, right? So he is on the season so far through 5 games, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He has 58 first downs that he has completed in 5 games. By comparison, last year he was in 6 games, only completed 43 first downs. He has a 43.2% success rate, defined as picking up at least 40% of the yardage, the required yardage on first down, 60 on second, and then 100% on third and fourth. That is the second highest, by the way, the second highest success rate in his career. The highest, 2022, when he had a 45.7% success rate. In the last 3 weeks, basically, he's had 1 interception, and that came on a last-ditch Hail Mary. All right, not too bad. Not too bad at all. He is on pace for 3,869 yards and 387 completions, which would both be career highs. He has the 10th most passing yards in the league, 1,138 yards. 9.3% of his passes have been bad throws, and that is a career low, by the way. Okay, so basically, the stats have shown that he is playing better football. He is making smarter decisions. He is still basically a one-read quarterback, but it's working. And I mentioned at the start, we'll go into what they're doing to get everything to click for him. So I'll get to that in just a moment. But look, we've got to give credit. I've got to give credit where it's due. I had my doubts, but I also tried to keep an open mind, willing to say, okay, Daniel Jones comes in here and he, plays solid football and he answers to critics like myself. Got to give him credit. I'm not going to die on the hill that, the Giants have to get rid of him because so far he is playing decent ball. Now, is he necessarily coming up with the big plays like Tiki Barber suggested he was not doing? That's hit and miss. But you look at basically weeks 2 through 5 and the two losses that are nestled in there, week 2 and week 4. Can you honestly say that Daniel Jones was solely responsible or majorly responsible for those two losses? I don't know that you can. Week 2, they should have won that game. They have a healthy kicker, they win it. Week 4 against the Cowboys, okay, you might be able to make a case and say, well, they got down to the red zone and he wasn't able to get it done. But you can counter that by saying he also didn't have a run game to take some of the onus off of him. So Daniel Jones, if I had to summarize the start of his 2023 season, his comeback season from a torn ACL, I think we could basically say that he's been a few levels above that of a game manager. Is he elite? Not yet. Right? Is he trending in the right direction? Absolutely. And you can point to, the personnel, the supporting cast around him. You can say, well, Malik Neighbors. You could say, oh, the offensive line. You could say, the tight ends. You could say the running backs, whatever you want to say. But Daniel Jones, we've got to give him credit where it's due. And he has been playing solid football. Not perfect, but solid enough to where it is encouraging. Now, I don't want to get too far down the line because I don't know what, tomorrow brings, let alone what week 6 and 7 and onward will bring for this football team. But I think we have to be encouraged by what we have seen from Daniel Jones. We have to continue, I think, to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's earning that. And, look, if he wets the bed down the line, I'm going to call it the way it is because that's what I do here. I don't operate on emotion. I have no personal investment, no horse in this race, so to speak. My job here is to be objective, to tell you what I see, to share with you my research, to give you an honest and objective opinion. And it can't be denied. The guy's been playing pretty good football for the most part. Not perfect, but pretty good. Good enough, certainly, to have won that week 2 game. Week 4, you can make the argument that it could have gone either way, but certainly the week 3 game was convincing. That was a convincing win. And what he did against Seattle, a very much convincing win. All right, coming up next, as we continue the Ode to Daniel Jones episode, what have the Giants done to get him in the right frame of mind, the right situation to play as well as he has? I'll tell you about it right after this. Hey, Giant fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the very same page where you place your bets. And right now, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Visit fanduel.com to get started. That's fanduel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Hey, Giant fans, time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Well, our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including literature, mathematics, fine arts, history, economics, and so much more. There's no better way to expand your knowledge and challenge your mind than to open it to learning something new from Hillsdale College's vast catalog of online courses. Enroll today for free at hillsdale.edu/locked on. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/locked on to register for free. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me here on Locked On Giants. And coming up this week on the Locked On Giants podcast, I'm going to have, or I'm scheduled to have, I should say, Trey Wingo on the program. That will probably be tomorrow's show. Then on Thursday, it is Crossover Thursday. James Rapine, Jake Lisco of Locked On Bengals, and I will sit down and we will break down the Sunday night matchup, Giants and Bengals at MetLife Stadium. So we'll talk about that. And then, of course, we'll have one more show for you on Friday, topic of which is to be determined. So hope you will tune in and catch all that. And then just a quick look ahead to next week. Fingers crossed, but I'm hoping to have one of the current Giant players on the show. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I will say this much. It's an A-lister. So I'll leave you to try and guess who it is. We're still working out the timing, but I feel pretty good it's going to happen. So anyway, Daniel Jones. Oh, to Daniel Jones. Guy's been playing pretty good football. So what have the Giants been doing to help Daniel Jones to get him back on track? Now, right away, you can point to the offensive line, which is vastly improved. All right, I'm going to give you a stat here. And by the way, these stats have come from, that I'm quoting for you, they have come from Next Gen Stats, and some of them have come from Pro Football Reference, which is tied into the official league stats, as I understand it. All right, so Daniel Jones, offensive line protection. Right now, he is being pressured a career low 20.8% of his dropbacks. That's pretty good. When you consider how last year that offensive line couldn't block, an elephant if it tried. That's pretty good for this offensive line. They are getting the ball out of Daniel Jones's hand quickly. All right. He is by getting it out of his hand quickly, and he's averaging, I think, slightly over 2.85 seconds to throw, which, the cutoff is 2.5 seconds. Ideally, you want to get it out of your hand 2.5 seconds or less, but if you go a little bit over, it's not the end of the world. Just shows that you have decent protection. So against like pressure and the blitz, Daniel Jones is actually 39 of 60, which is a 65% completion rate. And he has thrown for 398 yards and 4 touchdowns. So Daniel Jones handling the blitz a lot better because the offense is set up to get it out of his hands into the hands of the playmakers in the short, quick passing game. And the yards after the catch per completion, by the way, 5.1 average, which is also a career high for Daniel Jones. So the object all along, get the ball in the hands of the yak specialists and let them run amok. All right, so that's what they've been doing. Daniel Jones primarily still going to his first read. One of the big criticisms that I have talked about countless times on the show, and others have mentioned as well, is that he's primarily a one-read quarterback, that if his first read is taken away, that's it. But because of the quick passing game, he's been able to get the ball out of his hands and usually to his first read. he's telegraphing the ball a lot less than he was earlier in the season. So, there were times when you can watch him on the all, if you hadn't watched the game and you were watching him on the all 22, you could probably tell just by where he was looking, where he was going to go with the ball. Um, the other thing that has helped him, and this goes without saying, the presence of a run game. If you look at week 2, week 3, and week 5, which are basically his 2 touchdown games, 2 touchdowns thrown in each of those games, they had, in terms of rushing yardage, 129, 112, and 175. So obviously having a running game helps take some of the pressure off of Daniel Jones. But again, he's been pretty good in the face of pressure. So you got to give him credit for that. Got to give the offensive line credit for that. The offensive line has been built for pass protection. And the pass protection, at least through the first 4 or 5 games, has been a little bit better than the run protection, the run blocking. Although the run blocking has gotten better. And then, we mentioned the presence of Malik Neighbors, who has certainly helped. The fact that Brian Dable is now in Daniel Jones's ear. I thought on Sunday against the Seahawks, I thought Dable called a beautiful game. There were very few plays where I sat there and said, I don't agree with what he's doing there. So he was really like leaning into the strength. They're developing a rhythm, play caller to quarterback, and it's working so far. It absolutely is working so far. So, overall, the Giants, this is year 3 in the same system for Daniel Jones. They finally cleaned up the stuff around him because, look, I don't care who the quarterback is. If you don't have a good offensive line, if you don't have, good receivers capable of catching those short passes and turning them into long gains, if you don't have a running game, you're not going to be successful. No one man can do it by himself. That's why football is a team game. So the Giants have finally given Daniel Jones what he needs to be successful. And oh, by the way, speaking of the passing game, something that was missing, and they finally, got this position involved, getting the tight end involved in the middle, for those passes over the middle of the field. Theo Johnson appears to have taken over as the TE1 for the team. And, look, if you're going to throw the ball, and I've said this before on the show, you don't want to limit yourself to just 1 or 2 receivers. You kind of want to look to spread it around as much as you can. Sure, you're going to have a hot hand and you're probably going to want to stick with him, but the idea is to spread it around if you can so that defenses can't hone in on one guy. So overall, you put it together, all these factors, and it has set Daniel Jones up for success. And that, kudos to him because the kid does work his tail off. He studies, he does everything you would expect a franchise quarterback to do. Basically cut from the same cloth as Eli Manning when he was the quarterback of this team. Daniel Jones working towards getting the results that have eluded him for basically the first 5 years of his career, or most of the first 5 years of his career. All right, now coming up next, there are a few little things that still need to be cleaned up. Some of them his fault, some of them not. I'll tell you what they are right after this. Hey, Giant fans, if you're looking for those hard to get tickets to shows, concerts, and sporting events, look no further than to Game Time. Game Time makes finding the tickets you want to the hard to get into events faster and easier than ever before. And they offer seats at competitive pricing. With Game Time, there's no hidden fees. You're going to know exactly what you're paying for before you check out. You'll get clear images of your seat views, and you'll also get event cancellation protection. And if you find tickets elsewhere in the same section and row for less, Game Time will give you 110% of the difference. So go on and get the tickets you want. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Hey, Giant fans, the new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the madman, Tyler Rowland, kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop for a visit with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On Local experts, and you'll get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the new Locked On NFL your second listen on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and we have a show completely devoted to the play of quarterback Daniel Jones. And why not? I mean, look, the kid's taken a lot of, abuse from fans. He's taken some, he's been questioned by media, myself included, but I can't speak for anybody else. I can only speak for myself. When the kid does well, he deserves the praise, he deserves the kudos, and he deserves the credit. And I think to ignore it would just be not fair to him. Now, before I go into what still needs to be maybe improved in this game, just real quick, I want to send a special shout out to any of my listeners who are down in Florida who might be in the path of Hurricane Milton. Please, please, please be safe. I'm thinking about you. I'm hoping that Milton somehow stays out to sea and dies out in sea. Don't want to hear of anybody getting hurt, anybody having damage. So if you are in the path of Milton, do me a favor, just check in with me. Let me know that you're okay at some point because yes, folks, I do care. I do care. So, all right, let's get back to Daniel Jones. What are some of the things that need to be cleaned up for in his game? Things that maybe just aren't quite there yet. Well, the first thing, and this is not his fault, his receivers got to get sticky or something on their hands because the drops are maddening. Jones has been victimized by 12 drop passes, which I believe is in the top 5 league-wide. Just think of what his numbers would be like if those drops were halved, okay? It just seems like every game there's 1 or 2 bad drops per game by a receiver. Can't have that. Just can't have it. But that's not Daniel Jones's fault. I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying in general for the passing game, that is something I would like to see cleaned up. All right. The other thing that Daniel Jones can work on, and I know he is working on, he has to improve the accuracy rate. He has a 66.3 accuracy rate, which right now is a career low. We saw it earlier in the year where he was underthrowing passes or overthrowing passes, gotten a little bit better on them. He completed both of his deep passes this past week against Seattle, passes that went for 20 plus air yards. So it's trending in the right direction, but you'd like to see that completion percentage go up a little bit more. Okay, the other thing, and I'm going to keep harping on this, I admire Daniel Jones for wanting to show how tough he is. But I got to tell you, folks, when he takes off as a runner and he doesn't slide and instead he leads with his shoulder or with his head, you got to hold your breath because that is dangerous. I fear for his well-being when he does that. It's like, dude, slide. Give yourself up if you have to, a yard or two short of your goal. Live to see the next down because all it takes is, he moves and then somebody comes flying in with the helmet and they hit him in the wrong spot. And God forbid it's a concussion or he gets hit on the shoulder. Look, I know football's a dangerous game and injuries are going to happen, but there is a way for a quarterback to be smart about it. And I just don't see it yet in his game. And I really wish he would, get there and stop leading with his head and going down, first with the shoulder, lowering the shoulder. Dude, you're not a running back. You're a quarterback. You need that shoulder to throw. So please, if you're listening, Daniel, and I know you're not, please be better at that. Consider sliding. Okay. The last point I want to make, and this is an important one. When scouts look at quarterbacks, and this lesson, by the way, comes to you courtesy of my time at the scouting academy, and I actually studied quarterbacks, learned how to evaluate them and really what to look for. One of the things that scouts have to put in their reports is a quarterback someone you can win with, someone you can win in spite of, someone who you can't win without. Can we sit here and honestly say that right now, at this point in Daniel Jones' career, that the Giants absolutely positively cannot win unless he is in the lineup? I don't think we can. And we saw that last year. All right. They won games without him in the lineup. Can we sit here and say that the Giants can win games because of him? I think so. Can we sit here and say that the Giants can win games in spite of him? Yeah, I think so. So I think for Daniel Jones, as he continues to go through this season and make his case as to why he should continue being this team's quarterback beyond this year, get to the point where if he's not, God forbid, not in that lineup, you're saying, wow, this team can't win without him. Because that's what really separates the very good quarterbacks from the journeyman type or the just another guy. So Daniel Jones overall, definitely the arrow is trending upward. It's pointing upward. Let's hope it continues. This weekend, they have a weakened Cincinnati defense. They just lost their top cornerback. It would be a great week for Malik Neighbors to come back. We'll have an update on that, obviously, later on in the week for you. But overall, I think we have to give Daniel Jones his due. Guy's been playing well, and he deserves the credit. So, that being said, no, folks, the show wasn't a mirage. This was an actual show. I did actually say all this. It's on video. It's on audio. And I hope you enjoyed the show. I know I enjoyed doing the research. And I appreciate you tuning in to the Locked On Giants podcast. You guys and gals have been great in viewing the videos, listening to the audio, watching the shorts. It's all appreciated. And please, love hearing from you guys. So if you have questions, you want to do a mailbag, it's something, maybe we do a Friday mailbag. Send me your questions. You can send them to me on Twitter or X as it's now called. Make sure you tag them Ask P Train. My email is in the show notes if you want to email me the questions. And maybe that's what we'll do for Friday. Maybe we'll do a reader mail, or I'm sorry, a listener mailbag, since we haven't done one of those in a long time. So that being said, thank you. I will see you tomorrow. Don't forget, Trey Wingo is supposed to be my guest, and that'll be on Wednesday's show. Have a good one, Giant fans.